This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Hi, my name is Igor Kheifets, and this is The List Building Lifestyle, the only podcast which delivers cutting-edge conversion strategies from the online trenches straight to your earbuds. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. I also invite you to grab a free copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. And now, once again, it's time to claim your list building lifestyle.
Welcome back to another edition of List Building Lifestyle with the king of list building, Mr. Igor Kheifets. What is up, my man?
All is good, brother. All is good. And really excited to get back into the studio after my European trip.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you, and I'm sure that the list builders would like to hear a little bit more about that trip. Was that your first long-term speaking engagement?
Yeah, it was a big of a speaking tour, if you will, because I got to speak at 3 different cities across Europe, over 2 different countries in just 72 hours. So I would literally get in the room, speak, stay there for a couple of hours, and get out to kind of rush to the train station and grab my first class ticket and travel to a different city. So I went to Amsterdam. From Amsterdam, I went to London and then to Manchester. So it was a hell of a trip.
No kidding. And I didn't even know trains had first class. I'm a little jealous about that. I'd like to try that one day.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, the best one by far was the Eurostar train, the one that takes you from Belgium to London. You feel kind of like flying business in a plane because you get served a meal and everybody's nice to you and it smells well and the toilet's clean. So you feel good about your investment. And it feels like you're flying, but you're not really taking off the ground, which is the part that I hate the most about flying.
Really? That's interesting. So you're not a fan of getting up in the air then, huh?
Oh, you kidding me? I'm petrified. Every time I get it, up in the air, I'm holding my wife's hand like a little sissy girl, just shaking,
That is funny. I didn't know that about you. So talk to me a little bit about the tour. What was the tour about and how did it turn out for you?
Well, it was about solids, of course, and I was invited to speak about paid traffic because turns out Europe is mostly full with people that are still building teams and building downlines the good old-fashioned way. They do hotel meetings, they do cold calls, they make a warm list of friends and family. And, while there are some big team leaders out there, people who build teams of tens of thousands of people, most people are still struggling. They have no idea how to get leads. They have no idea how to get customers. They don't understand how paid traffic works. And, it's funny because I noticed that the same questions people used to ask me 10 years ago or 8 years ago when I started with solo ads, I was asked, during those events. It's as if these people kind of climbed from under a rock, and they haven't been paying any attention at all. Which then led me to recognize the following fact, and that is that most people out there, our marketplace, if you will, is still clueless about the internet. They still don't understand how it works, and they still are sort of unaware of the potential. And that means that there's so much opportunity out there right now for you to make money even if you're brand new, right? There's so much untapped territory, so many untapped groups of people that is just ridiculous. And that's one of the biggest lessons for me during this trip, because I was like, man, everybody already knows Igor Solid is the best traffic source. Where else can we go? And here I am recognizing that there's a whole continent full of people that have no freaking clue.
That is nearly unbelievable. If you weren't telling me, I wouldn't have thought that was possible. So anyways, that's for my own personal curiosity, but I imagine you have a topic for us today, right?
Oh yeah, of course. I always do. So, one of my all-time favorite books is War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And it's a book about how to beat procrastination. So if you ever found yourself with a big to-do list, or maybe that to-do list is just, 1 or 2 things you got to do, and you found yourself procrastinating about doing those things, you definitely want to pick up War of Art and see what Steven Pressfield has to say about it. I mean, the guy is just incredible, the way he kind of breaks down procrastination and labels it and helps you overcome it. But recently, while I read the War of Art couple of years ago. Recently, I picked up a copy of Turning Pro, which is the next book in the series by Steven Pressfield. And in this book, he describes the differences between the amateur and the pro. So today, I wanted to take the lessons I picked up from that book and share the 7 ways to tell if you're still an amateur. And, just to define what an amateur really is, the amateur is a person that will never succeed. It's not that this person is still unskilled in a craft. That's not the meaning of amateur. Amateur is the way you approach life. Amateur is basically a way of life. It's a way of being that gets you no results and that really just creates incapacity in all areas of your life. So, the 7 ways we're going to be talking about in just a bit are going to help you identify if you're acting like an amateur and basically give you a couple of pointers on how to change your behavior starting today to start getting better results in your life.
All right, I'm looking forward to it, and I haven't read this book yet, so it's going to be a lesson for me too.
All right, cool. So the first way to tell if you're an amateur is basically the amateur, she believes that before she can act, she must get permission from the omnipotent other or some sort of figure of authority. Even if that figure of authority is your spouse or your brother-in-law, just the society as a whole or a tribe of some kind, or maybe your school teacher or something like that. Most people are kind of wait for permission, and I see this all the time in our industry. People ask me, how to become a leader, or how to build big teams, or how to succeed. And then when you give them the tools, when you give them the blueprints, they don't act. And so while most people will never tell you why, I recognize that it's because they wait for permission to be eligible to act. It's like, I can't be making money online unless I can prove that I'm making money online, kind of thing. The catch-22 thing. It's like, how can I get someone into my downline, or how can I sign someone up into my business if I'm not making money right now? So they're like waiting for the money to suddenly appear out of nowhere, and that sort of makes them qualified to go and sell something. And so that's the classic amateur behavior, which you got to eliminate, and you got to start basically giving yourself permission. Just at some point say, enough is enough. I waited long enough. I've studied long enough. Now I give myself permission to go and to sign someone up. And it can it can be tremendous. It can produce incredible results for you in your life, just not waiting for someone else to tell you can do something.
You made me feel bad there, Igor, because I was waiting for your permission. One time we talked about positioning, and I was waiting for your permission to call myself the king of podcasting. And when you finally gave it to me, I went out there and started using it. So I'm already an amateur.
Well, we all got to start somewhere, man. But trust me, too many people out there, they wait their entire lives and act like amateurs. So that was the first one. The second one is the amateur has a million plans and they all start tomorrow.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean that we know that one, right? It's not something that we didn't know before. All amateurs, they have a million things they plan to do. They got tons of crazy ideas. They got tons of things up in the air in the works. They're spinning lots of plates, but nothing really gets done. And so the key difference between amateurs and professionals that I was able to spot early on, and then sort of adapt the same behavior, is to apply the imperfect action strategy to my life and just say, okay, so I may not have the best ideas, I may not have crazy plans, but what I do have is my work ethics, and I recognize that I got to do something first before I can implement other ideas. So I would grab one idea, even if it's a weak one, and I would start doing things to implement it. And it's specifically with offers, for instance, right? I'm very quick to put together an offer and release it to the marketplace if I see a gap in the marketplace that offer can fulfill. That alone has been tremendous for the growth of our business, because while most people out there, they kind of wait for the time to be perfect and for the offer to be perfect and for the product to be perfect, we're often running testing the product, making money, improving it, getting people on board, streamlining the systems. Like by the time they're like releasing anything, we're already miles ahead.
That's one of the things when I met your mentor, Tom Beal, that was one of the things we said about you, is like, gosh darn, I never met anybody that takes action so damn quickly. Somebody tells you something and it's done before they finish their sentence.
Well, you kind of have to, man. And this is sort of like a superpower for me. I don't see it with a lot of people, but trust me, the people who I do recognize this quality in, they're like unstoppable. They might not be the most creative people in the world. They might not be the most, amazing and interesting people in the world. But damn it, if they sit down to implement an idea, they just become profitable with it very quickly.
No doubt.
So the third one is counterintuitive, and it's gonna to most people, especially to most amateurs, it's gonna not make any sense. But the amateur is addicted to failure.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably thinking like, yeah, but how can you be addicted to failure, because nobody likes to fail? Well, here's the thing: failure sort of gets you off the hook. Failure is that get out of jail free card that allows you to say, my life sucks and that's okay because I tried and I failed. I mean, this is probably the easiest way to piss me off is to complain to me about trying and failing at something. But this is this is a classic amateur behavior, and amateurs do get this sick, twisted satisfaction out of failing at something. In fact, they sort of hope they will fail even before they begin, because again, that just gets them off the hook, and it allows them to say, "Well, I tried and it doesn't work." So that's number 3. Number 4.
You know what I call that, Igor? I want to share this with you. I think you'll get a kick out of it. I call it a case of the it's nots.
It's
I
not.
ask people if they got the it's nots. They're like, well, it's nots. Yeah, I tried this and it's not working. I tried that and it's not working. Oh, you got the it's nots. You got a problem.
Absolutely, man. This is there's a really cool name for it. It's nuts. Sounds like a chicken pox. So number 4, the fourth way to tell if you're an amateur is if you're addicted to distractions. Now, here's why this is interesting. You see, most of us are addicted to distractions at this point, like Facebook, Twitter. The phone is going off all the time. Like recently, I was just forced to put my phone down, next to me on the table. I used to just put it next to me on the table, but the screen glows so often that I have to turn it down now and put the screen to the table. You know what I mean? So I see the back cover, because it's just impossible to get any work done this way. And if you let it, the distractions will take over. And here's the thing about distractions. They too sort of get you off the hook, because, the number one enemy of progress and success and achievement is the distraction. Because in order to achieve, in order to produce, in order to create, you need concentration and depth. Right? You have to be concentrated. You have to go deep into something to really make things happen. And if you're getting distracted every 2 seconds, for the latest tweet or news article or whatever, you will never get deep into something. So the amateur is using the distraction of any sort, okay, as an excuse not to act, even if that means like taking their kids to soccer practice, even if that means using their weekends to paint the fence rather than to write a new piece of content or whatever that is for that particular person. Like my best friend, for instance, he's a good guy. He's implementing, but he has a little bit of an amateur still in him, just like we all, right? It sort of lives within us. And so his amateur, it's all about building stuff. So rather than implementing a marketing strategy, he will go in and he will build a new thing into his store, like put a new shelf on or put a new billboard. You know what I mean? Like he will build something rather than go promote his business. And so I pointed this out to him several times, and I said, dude, if you want to build stuff in your store, get someone, pay them money to build it. Your job is to go, get new customers.
Igor, I have a quick question for you here, because I'm of course, this is my personal stuff. So do you still buy info products, or do you just invest in getting mentorship? What's your angle on that these days?
Well, that's a great question. I think the last info product I purchased was a year and a half ago. It was a product by Dan Kennedy called The Money Pyramid. Ever since, I've only been getting one info product, and that is Ben Settle's newsletter.
Yeah.
Which is, for which I'm paying. Other than that, no, it's pretty much been just mentorship.
I thought so, man. That's one of the things I'm trying to do for next year, is just forget all those distractions and pay for people.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly. And we've been hiring like crazy too. I think we hired 5 new people in the last 3 months, which, for me, I think I've hired 5 people in the last 3 years collectively. So,
Wow.
We've been putting money towards other things. And the reason, I think we did an episode about this is, the information diet is like, stop consuming, go create, right? Consume less, create more. Now, number 5, the fifth, character trait of an amateur is the amateur is just terrified, petrified, just pissing their pants with fear, because You see, fear is the primary color of the amateur's interior world. And I'm quoting the book here, by the way. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of looking foolish, fear of underachieving, and fear of overachieving, fear of poverty, fear of loneliness, and fear of death. Pretty much fear of everything. But, mostly what the amateur fears is being excluded from the tribe, right? It can be the gang, the posse, mother and father, religion, nation, race, whatever that is. The professional, on the other hand, he too is terrified. Don't get me wrong. I mean, professionals get scared just as much as amateurs do, but they, like Doberman Den said, I think once in his newsletter, is they piss their pants, but they then take action with wet pants. That's the difference between an amateur and a professional.
Nice.
So, fear will always be there. Fear, it will always be there, kind of waiting for you by the time you decide to take on another challenge. But, you have to recognize it for what it is, just an emotion, and then act in spite of it if you are to turn from amateur into a professional. Now, the other thing that amateur does a lot is that she lives by the opinions of others. The amateur continuously rates herself in relation to others, becoming self-inflated in her fortune's rise and desperately anxious if the star should fall. So, in other words, amateur will always be living in a world where comparison is the number one activity. So, if they make X, they will look for somebody who makes X plus 10 and feel like crap about it. Or they will see somebody who makes X minus 10 and they'll feel great. So the amateur, their emotional state is constantly being controlled by an external set of events. Maybe somebody drives a nicer car, maybe someone, lives in a nicer house or in a better country. I used to be an amateur in this regard for years. That was the number one peace of mind stealing activity I've indulged in, and I've held myself prisoner to just being miserable because of it. I constantly compared myself against other bigger gurus, against my competitors, against people in other businesses that did better than me. The first time I went to the United States of America, I looked at, these giant houses people lived in. I looked at all the cars they drove, like the Corvettes and the Lamborghinis and the Ferraris, and I was just, especially in Orlando, with the gated communities and stuff. I was just, that was just devastating to my self-esteem. And I came back, I worked really hard. I kept working even harder, to achieve more, but I was driven by this superficial bullshit more than by the internal desire to make a lasting change or make a contribution, or perhaps just hit the next challenge in my business or my personal growth. You know what I mean? Like, I was a true amateur.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about that, when you're comparing yourself to other people, is it kind of puts you in a bad position, because you and I both know that hanging out with people who are more successful than us is going to raise our level of success. But if you're always comparing yourself, you're not going to be able to hang out with those folks because you're going to feel inferior.
Exactly. And, the mastermind principle of Think and Grow Rich, surrounding yourself with people who do better than you do in order for you to grow. I mean, you're sort of depriving yourself of that possibility if all you're doing is comparing yourself, right? If you feel bad about sitting next to somebody who makes more money than you do, or drives a better car, or has a better looking wife or something. Not to sound chauvinistic, but I'll be honest with you girls listening, we guys, we compare each other by by how beautiful our wives and girlfriends are. That just a bit of a truth, just a fact of life for you. Right. So if I see a guy whose wife is hotter than my wife, I just hate the guy because it's like, it's like he's driving a better car or something. But it sounds chauvinistic, but that's exactly how men think. Nothing.
Oh, man.
That's just DNA, man.
Cat's out of the bag. Igor, what do you have coming up for us next time?
Oh, dude, come on. We're only down to 6. We got to do one more.
Oh, shoot. I lost count. My bad.
Yeah. So the last but not least, it's actually not the last one. There's more of those in the book. So I recommend you get the book, which is Turning Pro by Steven Pressfield. But the last but not least that stood out for me is that the amateur seeks instant gratification. And I mean, which couldn't be truer for our industry where everybody is chasing shiny objects, right? But with this realization, there's a great quote that Steven shares in the book. And it goes something like this: too much ain't enough, and too soon is too late. Which basically kind of sums up exactly what our prospects are these days. They want everything. They want it yesterday. They don't want to work for it. They want the results to happen overnight. And, if they don't happen overnight, they complain and they leave and they go and they try to purchase another shiny object that promises the results, but they don't get the results either. And so it's just they're stuck in this, loop, going around and buying and buying and buying until at some point money runs out or patience runs out or both run out, and they either quit the business or finally come to grips with the reality and recognize, that it's not going to happen overnight.
Now we're there. Good stuff, Igor. So what is coming up next time now at the correct time?
Well, next time, I started studying Bruce Lee, which surprisingly I never had the interest to study before, but I discovered a bunch of things about his philosophy that allowed me to better understand success. Because turns out Bruce Lee was a philosopher just as much as he was a martial arts teacher and instructor. So on the next episode, I'd like to share a lesson that I learned from Bruce Lee's philosophy by reading his books that explains in a big way how come some people struggle for years, and, how come they are still chasing shiny objects, from a different perspective, something that I didn't see or didn't hear about, discussed on any other media, at least to my knowledge.
Damn, I didn't even know Bruce Lee had books. Now I'm going to have to go look for those. All right, so that is a wrap for another List Building Lifestyle. We'll be back in your earbuds next time. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for listening to the List Building Lifestyle. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play to never miss an episode. Because who knows, just one conversion tactic we share on the show might double your list and double your business. Download the transcript of today's episode and all future episodes at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com. And don't forget to claim your complimentary copy of the Wealthy List Builder Survival Guide at listbuildinglifestyleshow.com/survival. This is Igor Kheifets, and until next time we talk, have a good one.
This is the podcastfactory.com.